It was almost 2 a.m. before I was even halfway home after a rather long late night shift. Great, and just my luck. What did I do to do this? I just want to go home. I yelled to myself in my car, along with a slew of other words, as my dashboard began to flash like a Christmas light, and the engine began making noises that didn't sound like noises an engine should be making. Not long after that, it began to smoke up, which an engine definitely shouldn't be doing. I managed to find a mechanic close enough to drive to before it completely broke down. So, how long do you think it'll take? I asked the mechanic, a scruffy, stereotypical hillbilly, maybe mid-50s, with a patchy long beard, and what looked like an even patchier head of hair under his trucker hat. He went on about some car talk that I didn't understand, scratching his butt the whole time before finally answering. It won't take long, I'm fast with my hands. I raised an eyebrow. Okay, but how long do you think exactly? I asked, somewhat annoyed. 10 hours, maybe a little bit less, he said, before spitting next to his boot. Exact time, okay, I said with a sigh before paying for my repair. Appreciate it. Enjoy Mammonville County, he said with a smirk, as he swiped the cash from my hands and stuffed it into his pocket, not even bothering to count it. I figured I would try to find somewhere to eat, considering that I had missed out on dinner, and breakfast would be rolling up soon enough. So I called my wife to explain the situation, asked if she needed anything, and then left the shop. This town was basically in the middle of nowhere, but just barely. It was the type of tiny town that you drive through all the time but never stop at. I found a 24/7 diner that was actually pretty good. I definitely pigged out, seriously though. 6 pancakes topped with ice cream and a side of eggs and bacon for $6. It's too good to pass up. Thanks to my rather large early breakfast, along with a morning dessert, I managed to pass about 3 hours along with maybe another hour of playing on my phone, before paying for my meal and leaving the diner. On my way back to the shop, I came across a rather strange-looking building. It looked like a tiny 2-room shack, and it was rather far from every other building in the town. I was gonna walk right past it till I read the faded sign hanging on the window. Antiques and nostalgia for cheap. Huh, strange. Never heard of anyone selling nostalgia. I assumed that it meant nostalgic items, and me and my wife are suckers for old collectibles from our childhood, so I decided that I would give it a look. I walked in expecting to see some tiny rundown thrift shop, but no. This building worked like a TARDIS, bigger on the inside and much cleaner. My brain was having a system reboot, just attempting to process what I was seeing. I tried to think of a logical, realistic explanation for it, but there wasn't one. The place was just larger on the inside. It looked never-ending, in fact. Just a void with blue honeycomb carpeting, Greek palace-like walls, and a single long aisle, with haunting angelic opera music playing throughout. As I tried taking in my surroundings, a man's voice brought me back to reality. Well, maybe that isn't the best word for it. Welcome, sir. How are you tonight? Unlike everyone else's voice that I've encountered in this town, his was dignified, proper. He spoke like the type of rich guy who feels obligated to talk classy. I looked over to my left to see a pale man with a goatee and long slicked back black hair, standing behind a seemingly never-ending desk, with only a single open book of names with dates of purchases, some looking to date back all the way to the 1500s. The man was dressed like a bartender that you would see in an old Western movie, wearing a red bow tie and black dress pants, A black suit vest with a white button up underneath it, the sleeves rolled to the elbow. This, but what, how? I blubbered out of confusion, trying to ask where I was before being cut off. Where are you? An antique store, as the sign says. As you can see, I'm quite the collector. I needed a place to be able to hold all that I have for sale, and this place worked perfectly. Please, feel free to browse to your heart's content, he encouraged, explaining things so laid back. I did so, trying to ignore the whole infinity room thing, as I traveled down the single endless row of shelves. These were all items that would be better suited to be sold in an auction for millionaires. Rifles and flintlock pistols apparently used in the American Revolution. Samurai blades and masterfully crafted armor from the feudal period. Personal letters and journals of historical figures like Nikola Tesla, Lu Bu, and every president in history, from the US or any other country. What solidified this stuff's authenticity for me was the jewelry. You see, I've been a jeweler for over 10 years, specifically in the authenticity department, meaning that it's my job to spot the difference between real and fake gems and ores. So if these things weren't real, they were the most well-made fakes that I had ever come across. And as the sign had promised, it was all for cheap. I mean prices like $2, $3, a dollar. But next to each dollar, there was a different symbol. A Y with a lowercase e in the center of it. I figured it was just another form of currency from another country, but noted that it was strange as that there were no other symbols to any other countries aside from America and this unknown place. My greed got the best of me, grabbing about 10 things from the Stone and Iron Age for a whopping $13 in total. However, during my shopping spree, I noticed that there was nothing past the time of World War II, certainly nothing from my younger years. The shopkeeper must have been able to read my mind, because the second that it popped into my head, I heard his voice once more from right next to me. "Can I help you with anything, sir?" I jumped back, feeling my heart jump into my throat. I didn't even hear him come up to me. It was like his footsteps were silent. Yeah, hi. You got anything more recent? Like mid-80s to late 90s? The sign did say nostalgia. All this is kind of old, I asked, trying to ignore the fact he had just Houdini'd over to me. When I did, I could see a large, pearly white grin spread across his face, one that was a little too wide. "Ah, you're looking for something more personal. That would be in the other room. This way, please," he said, extending his arm forward and standing aside. As we made our way to the front desk, I realized that there was a door next to the entrance that I had completely missed on my way in. As we passed the desk, he stopped and turned to me. "Would you like to pay for these now so you could leave them at the desk while we continue? Or would you prefer to lug it around?" he had asked, pointing down to the pile of medieval and caveman relics in my arms. I shrugged and decided to do so, and he bagged them and left them on the desk for when I was ready to leave, insisting that we end the deal with a handshake, despite the fact that our business wasn't over, before entering into the back room. Rather than any shelves, it was a single large podium, illuminated by a row of LED lights. "So, where's the stuff?" I asked, slightly worried that he might have brought me back here to butcher me or something. He shook his head and clicked his tongue. "Oh no, not personal items. I can offer you something much better," he said as he flipped a switch, lowering down the podium to surface level. I can offer you the chance to relive some of your fondest memories as if it were the first time. I raised my eyebrow and crossed my arms. And what do you mean by that? I asked. He flashed that large grin once more. I mean, even the most vivid dream couldn't compare to the feeling of nostalgia that I can grant you. I can bring you to the very source of that nostalgia. Just step on the podium, think of the memory that you would like to enter, and close your eyes, he said with great charisma. I looked back and forth between him and the podium before shrugging. All right, I guess, why not? I said. Splendid. He then guided me to the podium, instructed me once more, before shaking my hand again and telling me to have fun. I did so, closing my eyes and opening them to see myself in the mirror. 17 years ago in college. I knew exactly the day too, seeing that I was wearing the goofy Reese's shirt and baggy sweatpants, along with my roommate playing Ocarina of Time on our crappy little TV, asking me if I was ready for Benny's party, the very party that I met my wife. It was the strangest feeling. I don't even really know how to describe it. I knew that I was in the past, but at the same time, had absolutely no clue that I was reliving my life. I both could and couldn't speak and move freely, as trying to say anything about the future would make me forgetful, and quickly moving on from the topic. It was, as he said, better than any vivid dream you could imagine. The night went as perfect as I can remember, from the enjoyment of reliving a crazy party from my younger years, but more importantly, the feeling of meeting Stephanie for the first time. I remember going mush-brained on sight, getting trashed enough to try and talk to her, getting her old phone number that I'd almost forgotten, down to the end of the night ending with how any truly romantic college love story normally starts. A drunk one-night stand, and waking up realizing that we like doing more than hooking up at frat parties. Not long after she left my dorm the next morning, I woke up back into the empty room with the suited man. Well, did you enjoy yourself? He asked with a confident smirk. It took me a few moments to remember that I had just purchased temporary time travel and it was crazy. Holy crap, that was something else, man. How much was it? I asked to fish out my wallet from my pocket. He waved his hand in the air with a cheeky grin. Not necessary. You've already paid in full, he said as he had raised the podium with the number 15, and that same strange Y symbol labeled on the price tags. Unlike the price tags, there was no regular dollar sign next to it. I scratched and I looked at him. What does this Y thing mean anyway? I asked, tapping the metal plate that it was engraved on. His response made me freeze from fear. His grin grew much wider. Years, Mr. Talbert, he announced. I stared at him for a while in shock. How do you know my name? I asked. I could hear the shakiness in my voice as I had asked it. Why, I know everything about Ryan. I know you were born on November 4th in 1986. I know that you almost died of hypothermia when you were 8 trying to catch Santa on Christmas. I know that you have twins, Samuel and Samantha. Lovely children, by the way. Need I go on? He said as he crossed his arms. I tried to register the fact that this man I've never seen before in my life. He knew everything about it. I was so lost about it that I almost completely forgot the first part of his answer. What did you mean, years? I asked cautiously. He threw his head back with a laugh. Is it not obvious? You've paid to relive one of your fondest memories in your past, in exchange for possible memories in the future, he explained matter-of-factly. I tried to mumble out of my somewhat nerve-induced, paralyzed mouth, before he answered the questions for me before I could finish asking. Yes, Ryan, you've just given me 15 years of your life. Of course, that's not including the previously spent 13, so that would be 28 years of your life, he had said, with a sting in his voice, like a loan shark who had swindled his biggest debt, racked schmuck. But I gave you money for those things out there, I yelled, almost in a plea after hearing my remaining lifespan had been shortened by at least a quarter, if I'm lucky. He clicked his tongue again and flashed that same cheeky grin. You can think of that as a donation of sorts. After all, you'll most likely sell at least one of those items for a large sum of money. Surely you won't mind 13. I could feel my rage boil, melting over my frozen paralysis, charging the man ready to beat the crap out of him. You tricked me, I yelled, swinging my fist towards his face, only to land straight onto mine as my knuckles connected with empty air. Tricked you? I heard him say from my left. His voice seemed different though. It was deeper than anything a human can make. I slowly turned to see a set of crouched goat-like legs with shiny gold-plated hooves. I slowly looked up to see a half-goat, half-goblin-like creature with crimson red skin, a wolf-like snout filled with gold and even diamond teeth, and eyes that seemed to glow silver. He wore an excessive amount of the finest jewelry, along with a large platinum crown. You came into the store on your own accord, did you not? He hissed, grabbing the hair from the back of my head and pulling it upwards to meet him face to face, his bright, silver eyes staring right through me. You had plenty of opportunity to ask what that symbol could mean. Did you ask the price for reliving your memory? No, you let your greed guide you, and you paid the price for it. Now please take your items and leave. Or shop some more if you'd like, he mocked. Just remember, we don't forget to shake on it when you're done. He finished with another laugh, before dropping my head back to the ground. My body felt like it was made of stone, causing me to smack it rather hard, putting me in a heavy daze. I dared not argue with whatever he was, but could only ask one question. Are you the devil? I was horrified at the beast that I was seeing. He cackled and slapped his knee. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard that one, thinking about it, I probably do. No, the old man has no need for such a thing. I mean, neither do I. But there's something just so fascinating, not to mention hilarious, about messing with your human minds. Now, would you like to keep this chit-chat going? He started as he tapped a solid gold watch wrapped around his wrist. I couldn't even say anything, just stare in shock and awe. After a minute he sighed. All right then, he muttered before snapping his fingers. Suddenly, I was waking up in my car, completely repaired, outside the shop, not even an hour after originally entering. I tried to convince myself that it was a dream, until I looked in my passenger seat to see my bag of recently purchased goods. I didn't know how to react, so I simply drove home in complete silence, just running loops in my head about what had just happened. When I got home, I was greeted by my family. The kids asked to play while Stephanie welcomed me home as she got ready for work. I tried my best to keep my composure, but seeing the ones that I loved most, right after being told my life had been shortened, cut me deeply. Well, I'm sure they saw it on my face, as the kids gave me a confused look, while my wife asked me if everything was okay. I simply told her that it was just a long night, and that I was just happy to be home. As he said, I sold most of the items purchased, a lot of cash being put aside for Sam and Sam once I passed. It's been about 14 years since then, and yesterday morning I got a call from the hospital telling me that they had my test results after a rather violent asthma attack a few weeks prior. They said that it was lung cancer, untreatable, I've been given an estimate of 3 years left at best. I'm thinking of taking one more trip to Mammonville, even if only to see if the place still stands, and if it does, well, I've already been given my death date. What's another year or two? Might as well get them one last gift.